Low Budget Repairs is supposed to be one of those chill work simulator type games, and it had 50,000 people wishlisting it before it even released. But unlike games like the positively received House Flipper or Power Wash Simulator, this one feels a little rough around the edges, maybe even low budget. Hey there, Chat for Game8 here. Today we'll be looking at Low Budget Repairs and if it's something you should check out, so let's get on with the review. First off, this game is set in Poland, so apologies in advance if I butcher some of the names. We follow Maciek, who used to live in the US and is now back in Warsaw to live in his aunt's former home. The only problem is that the place is a fixer-upper, to say the least. In order to get things fixed, he needs money, and his aunt recommended that he go to a Mr. Zbyszek. Zbyszek does odd job repairs, and while he was working on electricity for work, he electrocuted himself to death.
Jesus, girl! Mr. Zbyszek, are you alive?
Now you're taking over his job as a repairman while being guided by Zbyszek's ghost as he teaches you the way of the low-budget repairman. The game doesn't take itself seriously at all. You can probably tell that from the start of the game alone. There's nothing particularly stand out or deep about the setup or story developments. There is some funny and interesting banter from Maciek and Zbyszek. It's in these two main characters' personalities, particularly with Maciek's cynical naivete and Zbyszek's pragmatic debauchery, that the game's story is at its strongest. And while there's little in the way of character development, this dynamic does provide most of the lighthearted fun in the story. But this game's humor isn't going to be for everyone. The game does lean into the more crass end of the comedy spectrum. This isn't just shown in Maciek and Zbyszek's character dynamics, but throughout the rest of the people in the town. It gives it that unique vibe and character. However, it has a little bit of a downside as none of the characters are particularly endearing and a lot of them are abrasive or unlikable. I'm not dissing the crass humor because of some, ooh, he said a bad word, you shouldn't do that, Puritan kind of predisposition. The crass humor can get unlikable and old because it feels like that's all it does in a ham-fisted, one-trick pony kind of way. As you might have guessed, the game's all about doing some odd job repairs. You'll be doing a lot of different kinds of jobs. Sometimes you'll be fixing electric wiring or furniture, sometimes you'll be painting or cleaning, sometimes you'll be doing a wide combination of tasks in one job. Each task has a specific step-by-step process to it. When laying down tiles, you have to break down old tiles, lay down some tile adhesive, then stick it on, or when the tiles don't fit, you have to cut it down to size. When mounting shelves, you have to mark down drill holes, drill, then mount. This step-by-stepness of the game gives it a certain level of realism and sense that you're actually doing work. When you complete the jobs, you get money. You'll use that money to fund materials and furniture for your next job or use it to spruce up your aunt's wreck of a house. As you progress, you can also buy better versions of tools you already have. For example, your paintbrush can be replaced with a roller, which lets you paint a wider area, speeding up the work process. It is called low-budget repairs, so the game gives you a lot of means to really lower your budget, diluting wall putty and paint, picking up loose change from client houses, taking furniture that your clients no longer need, and such. Zbyszek tells you to be as half-assed with the repairs as much as you can and save money as much as you can. And the game is also called low-budget repairs, so you'd think there's some system that kind of encourages you to be as stingy with work as you can. But it feels like the game doesn't really enforce that. Maybe it's just me, but I don't feel the consequence of doing a proper job other than it takes more time. It doesn't feel like I'm short of money for any succeeding jobs as well, and you actually get more money the more properly you do a job. So in this sense, it doesn't feel like low-budget repairs. It's just repairs at this point. It feels like the game didn't really fully commit to its unique identity by giving you that economist choice of proper job or having money. That's not all. The game also feels janky. While there's an endearing kind of jank, like let's say vanilla Skyrim, this just feels like unfinished jank. There are the funny kinds of jank where items have weird physics and clip into each other and stuff like that. But there's also the frustrating kinds, like bugs that prevent mission progress and crashes. The worst case of this happening to me was when I was setting tiles. I was nearing job completion when I had to cut up tiles. The animation after tile cutting for some reason would bring your camera up slightly. So what that did was force my camera up while holding my tile, which would then collide with the 3 tiles above it that I already placed, breaking them. I was like, no problem, the adhesive is there, I'll set them again. When I got back to the bottom tile, it did the motion again, breaking the 3 tiles that I'd set above again. Not long after that, I also got this bug that didn't allow me to place tiles on. I had to reset the game twice to get it to work again. I think that would be enough for someone to just outright quit and ask for a refund if they're still within refundable time frame. Visuals wise, there's not really much to talk about. It's a fairly typical indie game sim kind of visual. Nothing very stylized, not very high fidelity either. It's just fairly plain. What I do like is that the UI is at least very easy to understand and navigate. Not much misunderstanding here other than some things that may be translated awkwardly. Audio is bare minimum. There is voice acting, but it's really awkward and full of inconsistencies with pronunciation. There's a weird disconnect between Maciek's cynical and straightforward personality and his very boyish delivery. There's also no music to speak of other than the music from radios that are sometimes there. Also, the music is apparently AI. Some people will not mind, some people will, so that's more of your personal judgment whether you'd allow that or not. Personally, I'd rather there was some human-made music, even if it was simple, just to accompany you as you were doing your jobs, because it really does feel empty audio-wise otherwise. So sorry to all the 50,000 people who wishlisted this before it released, but all in all, low budget repairs is a little hard to recommend. There are things it does well, and it's dirt cheap at around 14 USD, but at its current state, it's buggy and needs more work. If you do want something that's kinda like this game, there are a lot of options like Power Wash Simulator, Car Mechanic Simulator 2021, Supermarket Simulator. This game was supposedly unique in that it wanted to be a genre subversion to all these games, and it really didn't commit hard enough to the low budget aspect and thus stripped its potential uniqueness. And so we're giving low budget repairs a 60. So what do you think about low budget repairs? Were you waiting for it? Do you still like it despite its flaws? Tell us what you think. Thanks for watching, like if you like, subscribe for more video game reviews and other video game related content. This has been Chad for Game8, and we'll see you next time.